All right, chapter 12, sample surveys. So this first thing's pretty common sense, but one way to gather data about people is just to ask them.
When we have our next quiz, it's going to be 11 and 12.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Because then there would just be chapter 13 after that, so it doesn't really make sense to do one after that. So yeah, probably 11 and 12. And they kind of, they all kind of go together, but 11 and 12 go together pretty well. You take a survey, but for our data to be useful, we must be very careful about how it is collected. Bias data is always useless. Plan ahead. So you need to make a plan to be able to make your data as non-biased as possible. Don't ask a question and say, and we're going to get more into this later, but don't say something like, well, you don't really want to go to Target, do you? Trying to lean the person toward giving you an answer. Instead, say something like, do you want to go to Target? Something that's clearly yes or no, not trying to sway the person to give you an answer one way or the other. And we'll talk about all the different kinds of bias later in this chapter, but there's usually a large group of people we are interested in, also known as our population. If we can talk with all of them, we are taking a census. So 2 or 3 years ago now, we had a census in the actual United States. Which is great, but often impractical or impossible. So if we were going to do some kind of research on, I don't know if Mr. Fletcher sent it out yet, but there was a survey that if he hasn't sent it out, he's going to be sending out to the families of the school. And so if everyone can answer, then it's more of a census. Now, obviously, take it for what it is. It's a different kind of survey. But that's more of a census. If we're just looking at a smaller group of people, say just the high school, then that's just our population that we're dealing with. It's a smaller version of it. So we carefully choose a sample that is representative of our population. So instead, we might say something like, we're going to get, our sample is going to be 25% from each grade in the middle and high school. So that you take the class and you break them up, and that's how many you're looking at as like your sample size. But something that would be representative of the whole middle and high school by just taking a couple of them. So bias makes our data meaningless. And can be a result of, so things that cause it, who we surveyed, how we collected the sample, or how we asked the questions. And then we're going to have some definitions here. Got randomization. So when we select our sample subjects as randomly as possible, it protects us from the influence of all features of our population by making sure that on average the sample looks like the rest of the population. The next one is sample size. It needs to be large enough to be representative it's not based on the percent of the population so just a way to help you think about this, think about a pot of soup. I don't need a larger taste just because the pot is bigger. And the next one, population parameters. These are key numbers about our population. We usually don't know these. We use our sample statistics. Which are calculated from our sample to estimate our population parameters. This is super random, but the deadline to decide if you're taking the AP exam is like next week. So, anyways. And if you already selected one or the other and you change your mind, you just need to, I would verify even if you think you selected yes that you go check, or even if you selected no that you check, even if that is what you're sticking with, so that it doesn't, because last year we had one that was selected and then when it came time for the test, there wasn't a test for them. So we were literally calling the college board the night before the exam to fix it. So.
Yeah, I was talking to my mom the other night. She's like, I was talking to her about the AP exams, and she's like, "Oh, I thought you were taking it." And I was like, "What do you mean?" So
When you said
still deciding,
when
so.
you said something about possibly taking it the other day, I was really surprised because I
I know,
thought
I was
y'all were like set in stone not
I know,
doing
so
it.
did I, and then, oh, Jesus.
So I was like,
What?
okay, well I guess she's possibly doing it.
I have no idea. Okay, next week.
So sometime it is sometime next week. So I just know there's a lot going on in the next week. So I was like, this popped in my head. I need to say something about it.
Are you taking it?
I'm probably not. I'm not gonna try. I never tried an AP.
But have you ever taken a math one?
No, I'm still not. Next page.
To complete the class, you don't have to take the AP exam, right?
No, you just have to be enrolled on College Board, which y'all have already done, to get the AP credit. Otherwise, it doesn't go down as a extra. So you can
if
get-
You don't take the AP exam.
You don't get you have no chance of getting a college credit.
Okay.
But if you,
So like, there's no reason like not to take it. Like you don't like.
If you take it, you could possibly get it.
Yeah.
yeah, and it doesn't hurt you if you take it and do bad.
Okay.
Like when I took biology, I got a 2, which the college that I went to wanted a 3. Which it wouldn't have mattered anyways because I didn't need biology for my degree, but whatever, I took it anyways. So,
Okay. You can talk to this whole then.
You could exam history.
the thing is I would say if either of you went dual enrollment with it instead, like if you're like, no, I'm gonna like, since you drop this class, you're still getting the same credit like you would if you were in here, if you switch into a dual enrollment, but both of you should be guaranteed a college credit that way.
Okay.
But it's like $500 to take it that way
Yeah.
versus $100 to take this. But you weigh your options of, am I going to do well enough? And I mean, I can actually make a copy of one of the practice tests that you could like look through and be like, does this look like something I could realistically do?
Okay.
And then you could decide that way too, because sometimes seeing what the test is actually going to look like, it's a little overwhelming.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. I might want to do that.
Ollie went out here. So, simple random sample or SRS, well, it's kind of another thing, but it's like also its own subheading.
It's not on the calculator.
Huh?
It's not on the calculator.
It might be. I don't remember off the top of my head. This is a big deal. It is not enough to say every subject in our population has equal chance of being chosen for our sample. Every possible combination of people must have an equal chance of being chosen
Wait, are we gonna do like?
for our sample.
Are we gonna do like combinations and permutations?
Kind of, not in the sense of what you've probably done before.
I remember that was kind of a sequence thing.
Yeah. We do a little bit with it, but not, I don't know, it's just very different than what you would have done before. We definitely do combinations, permutations, not quite as much. The sampling frame represents the group of our population out of which we draw our sample. We got it at 39.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine. Because you're talking about the iPad person.
Well, there's just a lot. I was just seeing if, making sure, because I don't know. I always, on chapel day, I always mix up which classes end at which time. I always have to sit and think about it. All right, so how to select an SRS, or simple random sample. So we are going to assign a number to each person in your sample frame. You're going to use a random number generator. Or table, but we've been using the generator more to select the correct number of unique numbers. So the total that you need, and you only can have each person obviously occur once. If you have repeats, you just get rid of them, or you can set your generator to say like no repeats. Well, depending on what, you can't really do that on your calculator, but correct number of unique numbers for your sample. And then the last thing is the subjects assigned. These numbers will make up your sample. All right, and then the last little thing we'll try to write down for today. Be sure to state or show where your random numbers came from. Be sure to state the link between the chosen numbers and the people in the sample. So like on a class roster or something, like they're in alphabetical order, so say that like, okay, alphabetically, like going, starting from the top, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth down. So you can see what number lines up and you're not like, oh, well, I picked person 3 and I'm going to decide person 3 is Joelle. Like, you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So that's why I want you to like clearly label like what each thing is going to be beforehand when you're doing something like that. So we have a decent amount of notes left, probably like, well, let me see. Half a page, 1, 2, like 2.5 pages left, so we should finish them tomorrow. Maybe start examples tomorrow, we'll see. I might just print off the practice packets and then like maybe walk through a little bit of what it's gonna actually look like if you take the exam, so that would help you decide as well.